السلام عليكم. الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. In the past, we have talked about three fundamental questions every person, Muslim or non-Muslim, must ask himself or herself, which are, where did I come from? Why am I here in this world? And where am I going? We briefly covered the first and second questions and then covered the third question in detail. Today we want to focus on the second question more in detail. Why am I here? What is my purpose here in this life? I did not have any choice in coming to this world, did not have choice in where and when I was born, nor did I have any choice when and where I will die in this world or how long I live here. But while I am alive in this world, I do have a range of choices or choices to make. In order to make the right choices, however, I need to think and understand what is my purpose in this life. If I am a believer in God, then I need to understand why did He put me on earth, or for what purpose? What does He expect of me? This is not a philosophical question as much as it sounds so. Every person should ask himself this question. We often see people making mistakes repeatedly, Muslim or non-Muslim, even those who are basically lost. Some say, I believe in God, but I don't care for religion, because religion means rules and I do not like rules. I want to live the way I want to live, free, as they say. But then they repeatedly make mistakes and do not stop to think why, or to question whether these mistakes are consequence of their actions, behaviors, or attitudes. They think they can fix their problems their own way. Worse yet, they will say, it's okay, I have to experience it, otherwise I will never learn, as if the history and past experiences by others have no meaning. Worst, we never ask, why do these issues keep coming up? Besides making repeated mistakes, we often pursue things that are waste of time or meaningless with no useful results. You see, there is a root cause. And unless that root cause is addressed, these issues keep popping up. On the other hand, if we address it, everything falls in its place. Mistakes are reduced or even eliminated because the root cause has been addressed. So what is the root cause? The root cause is we don't often ask ourselves, why am I here? What is my purpose in this life? For non-Muslims, non-believers, they merely think they were created like a tree or an animal. They feed, drink, procreate, then die, and that is the final destiny. They think this way because that is what's apparent to them. That is how they see it. They only go by what they can sense. This is a very superficial attitude. But if you think a bit more, if they really reflect, they will see it goes far beyond their sensory perceptions. Intellect is fundamentally given to us to discover what is ghaib or hidden, or what is to be discovered. If one uses his intellect, he will know this world was not created haphazardly without any purpose. There is order and intelligence behind it. Quran often brings important reasoning, short but profound. For example, it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Am khuliqu min ghayri shay'in am humul khaliqun. Am humul khaliqun. Quran asks, were they created of nothing, or were they themselves the creators? In chapter 52, verse 35. Shay' means thing. Ghayr shay' means nothing. Were they created from nothing? Nothing or nothingness cannot be source of anything. Our aql tells us nothing cannot create something. Am humul khaliqun, or were they themselves the creators, means this is impossible and illogical as well, because in order for me to create myself, it requires that I must exist before I can create myself, and that is impossible. Then both are impossible. We're not created out of absolute nothing, and we could not create ourselves. This is true about all other creations, my grandparents, the trees, animals, the earth, etc. So, unbelievers' view on purpose of his creation is very superficial and inconclusive. What about the believer? What is his view on his purpose in this life? Well, as Muslims, we're blessed. Why? Imagine we did not have the Quran, did not have true word of God. What would we rely on then? The false prophets or distorted beliefs? Thank God we don't have to worry about that. We have the prescription or the answers. Our holy book is full of blessing and gives the reasons and proofs. But also it's full of blessing because when we look at where it was revealed, in middle of absolute ignorant Jahiliyyah society, and when it was relieved, at the time the superstitions and or violence was at its peak, and to whom it was revealed, to an illiterate man, we then realize it is the truth. Hence, Muslims must appreciate it and its miracles. They must also appreciate its wisdom and information about this world and this life on earth, and realize Quran is our guide and window to the unseen, which is beyond human perception. So, if you ask a Muslim about the reason God created him, he will immediately cite the Quran and say, well, Allah created me to worship him or serve him and no one else, nothing else. As the Quran says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِي. Actually, I have not created mankind and jinn except to worship me. Chapter 51, verse 56. He will then quote another verse that says, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. He who created death and life, so that he may try, test which of you is best in deed, in works, in actions. Chapter 67, verse 2. In other words, he created us and gave us the choice to believe in him and worship him or not, which in itself is a test as to which choice we will make. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute. If you recall, in the session called Why Prophets, we concluded that unlike animals, humans have the potential to learn, to grow, to reach Kamal, the point of perfection or completion in their humanity. When a seed grows into a tree and its final product is its flower and fruit, we say it has reached its kamal or completion. When a baby calf grows to a full-size cow and gives milk and gives birth to a new calf, she has reached her completion. But in both cases, the completion is programmed in them, in their nature. Neither the seed nor the calf have any choice in the matter. However, with humans, there is what we call free will. Hence, humans make choices based on their intellect. It is possible for a human being not to reach his or her kamal. In fact, that is the case in majority. However, just as a farmer knows the potential in the seed as opposed to a piece of rock in the same size and color, and he sees the potential in the calf, hence he gives both of them water and food. Just like that, Allah has put a potential, an ability in us to reach our perfection or kamal or completion. And that is His expectation from us. Now, we either believe God exists or not. If we don't believe there is a creator, then all this discussion is moot. Then we need to have a different discussion because proof of God's existence is a different topic. If we do believe there is a creator, then the question is, why did He create us and put us on this earth? For what? To do whatever we want and then die? People with different deeds, the good, the bad, all end up with the same destiny, which is death. One may be rewarded, the other may not. Some may be punished, some may be not punished and get away with it. All end up at the same place, which is death in the grave. Is that all there is? That is the question. Is that all there is? If that's all there is, that makes this life like a delusion, a play, a nothing. I have given this example before. It is as if you start a company with a factory fully equipped, with all workers hired, all equipment in place. Then, when they report to work, you give them no plans, no assignment, no product strategy, no schedule, no rules, nothing. You tell them nothing. You give them nothing. They can come whenever they want and do whatever they want. One may ask, why would you create such a company? Everyone would acknowledge that our body parts, such as our eyes, our ears, our brains, our hearts, each have a purpose, a mission. Wouldn't it then make sense that the individual as a whole, the body as a whole, the whole human body also has a purpose? God, the All-Wise, did not create us to simply wander aimlessly or to only fulfill our basic instinct and desires. If that was the case, we would be another animal. Then why did He give us the intellect, aql? As the Quran says, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ? Did you think that we had created you in jest, in play, in vain, and that you would not be brought back to us for account? Chapter 23, verse 115. That means the intellect is there for a higher purpose, to acknowledge and worship God alone, serve God alone, so that we live through His guidance. This guidance enables us to live a successful and blessed life in all aspects. So, the answer to the question why we are here can either come from the Creator Himself or from the mind of an unbeliever, because the believer already believes in the Creator Himself and His answer. The Creator Himself gives us the reason or the purpose He created us in His book, where not only He gives us the reason and purpose, but also how to live this life in order to reach that excellence and be successful in this life and hereafter, of course. Of course, in all of this, if we choose to follow it, we still have that free will. When the Quran says, وَمَا خَلَقْتَ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ, I have not created mankind and jinn except to worship me. Here, يَعْبُدُونِ, which comes from serving and worship, or ibadah, has a wide connotation in Islam. Worshipping in the sense of rituals like prayer, fasting, etc. is only a part of it. In Islam, anything a Muslim does that is permitted and halal, of course, with serving God in mind, with intention to serve God, and in His name, is considered as ibadah, worship. When a student studies to gain knowledge so he can make a better life for himself, and as he does so to serve God, every word and every page he learns, he gains reward for it from Allah. If one goes to work, he does so with the intention to serve God and provide for his family. It is a form of ibadah, worship, and he is rewarded for it. This is why Allah uses the term ya'budun, which has a wide connotation, and this is why Islam is a way of life, not just a religion of rituals. Regarding the purpose, the Quran also says, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. The one who has created death and life, so He may test you on which of you is best in deeds or conduct. Chapter 67, verse 2. You might say that earlier verse said He created us to worship Him, but now He says to test us. Which is it? Well, these are complementary and connected, as Quran itself connects them. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَجَعَلَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَلَكِنْ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ فِيمَا آتَاكُمْ. Had Allah willed, He could have made you one community, one nation, but He made you as you are so that He may test you by that which He has given you. Chapter 5, verse 48, which means He gave us many things in life, like life itself, health, wealth, possession, children, even power, fame, etc., by which He will test us. But He also gave us His book and His guidance to see if we use these things or not, if we use the guidance in order to best utilize all other things that He has given us. I repeat, He also gave us His book and His guidance to see if we use it or not, in order to best utilize all other things He has given us. So, you might reconcile both verses to say, Allah created us to test us with that which He has given us and see if we choose to serve Him, to worship Him or not. He says, I created you so you can serve me and worship me through the things I gave you. But I will test you to see if you choose that path or not. We just briefly discussed how the Creator himself answers the why question in this book. Well, if one does not believe in truth of God or truth of his word and his plan, then he does not have access to Creator's reason for our creation. Hence, he does not have the real answer to the question of why. Why are we here? Therefore, see what happens? Therefore, it will be as if he works hard all his life to build a ship, but once completed, he does not quite know what to do with it. Where is he going with it? He may just wander through life aimlessly, or he might just come up with his own theory, his own purpose for life based on his aql, which, as we mentioned in the Why Prophet session, intellect can be influenced by several external factors, hence cannot be relied upon 100%. It can misguide us. If I don't go to God's answer and come up with my own, my answer may be completely wrong. Therefore, my purpose in this life will be completely wrong. So then, for this person as a non-believer, or we can say a Muslim who does not reflect or does not have an intellectual honesty, or his belief does not run deep and does not think much about this fundamental question, why am I here? As a result, he or she runs into all kinds of problems in life. Whether we are parents or the adult children or a relative or a friend, starting with ourselves, we all need to reflect on these questions often to get a new perspective in life. Often we are so preoccupied with daily activities that we forget to remember that, what our purpose in this life is and where we're going. Once we remember these questions, a new set of priorities and realities come to our vision. If I keep repeating a mistake, or if I'm stuck in a wrong habit, or just involved in many useless, vain activities, or hanging out with the wrong crowd, once I think of these questions and their answers, then it should automatically be clear what I need to do next. We need to first internalize these concepts and then instill them in others. By the way, our daily prayers, especially the recitation of chapter 1, is supposed to remind us of our priorities in this life. God gave us the intellect, but also a supplement, which is his guidance through his books and prophets. So we can not only answer these three questions, but also have a manual on how to live a happy and successful life in this world and the hereafter, inshallah. So the above verses, verse 56, chapter 51, and verse 2, chapter 67, provide the short but profound answers as to what is our purpose in this life, and imply that once we make the choice to serve him only, the good deeds will follow. However, these are short and final answers. How do we get to these points? You see, just like a math problem in a test where we derive the answer through a set of steps and equations until we get to the final answer, which we draw a square box around it or underline it. And often teachers will not credit the student unless he shows his work, the derivation, as to how to get, how he got to the answer. How do we get to the, answers that are in above verses? What's the derivation? What is the process? From this point on, we will dig deeper into this topic, trying to answer the question of why we're here beyond the reasons presented by above verses. To do so, we need to understand the difference between humans and animals. Allah created humans with many talents and capabilities, which He intended for them to use. To use for what? To use to reach their peak of perfection, kamal, completion. Now, how could people know about how to utilize these capabilities? Well, one is the intellect, aql. Allah has granted them. And then the revelations He has sent to them through His prophets. Now, if they do not align themselves with the prophets and revelation of God, then how could they access such resources? Resources that answer these questions. How would they prepare themselves for the life here and the next life, which is forever? You see, humans are not single-dimensional beings. What do I mean by that? Well, Quran says humans have two dimensions. Quran says humans have two dimensions. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. Indeed, we created the human with the best stature, the best shape. ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. Then we reduced him to the lowest of the low. Chapter 95, verses 4 and 5. We created him in the best constitution, but he can get down to lowest of the low. Then the next verse, verse 6 says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Except those who believe and do righteous deeds. So a human being can peak to the best of stature, and another human being, the worst of it. That is, way below an animal even. Now, on the contrary, animals are not at all that different from each other. You take two elephants, for example. Aside from few physical attributes like strength, size, color, they're not going to be much different in behavior and living patterns. However, in humans, you can compare Attila the Hun, Genghis Khan, or any serial killer to Mother Teresa. Or compare any of the prophets with despotic kings and brutal rulers who have killed many, and you see a world of difference. Both are called humans, yet one behaves like an angel, heavenly, and the other worse than an animal. They both possess intellect, so what's missing for the one worse than an animal? A school of education and guidance. You see, lack of spiritual education and guidance brings forth irresponsibility. One who behaves worse than an animal does not really know what is the purpose of his existence on earth and what is next after this life. Lack of both of which brings about unaccountability, irresponsibility. All other forces like desires, power, fame, greed, and selfishness will not allow him to understand, distinguish, and feel responsible, hence reach his kamal, completion. This is why the Quran says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Except the one who believes in God and does righteous deeds, he will never be irresponsible and not know his or her place on this earth. The importance of one's life is in his nafs or soul. Without it, his body is just a piece of meat. And without his iman, his nafs or soul is nothing. Because if he has the body and nafs, but not the iman, he is another being much like animal and pretty much does what they do, with slightly faster speed or efficiency because of the tools he has devised around him to accomplish his desires, wants, and whims. Therefore, the importance of our body, our being, is our soul, and the importance of our soul is our iman, the light of guidance. Quran says, أَفَمَنْ شَرَحَ اللَّهُ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ فَهُوَ عَلَى نُورٍ مِّن رَبِّهِ فَوَيْلٌ لِلْقَاسِيَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ مِنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أُولَٰئِكَ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Allah makes a comparison. Is one whose heart Allah has opened to Islam, to submission, so that he has received enlightenment from his Lord, as those whose heart is hardened. Woe to those whose hearts are hardened against the remembrance of Allah. Those are in clear error. Chapter 39, verse 22. This is how a human can ascend to higher place in humanity or fall off the cliff to the lowest of all, lower than animals. Why do I keep saying lower than animals? Because the animals were not given the same tools of guidance and intellect that humans were given. Hence, humans have zero excuse. And that is why we need religious tarbiyah, education, not just from any school of thought, but the one that elevates human towards his perfection, kamal, or at least stops him from falling off the cliff. By the way, I just want to open a parenthesis here. As such, it's not reality to think people who do not believe in hereafter can do the right thing, righteous things. That is not the reality. You have heard some people who say, oh, so-and-so don't believe in God or hereafter, but they are always doing the right thing. They are good people. Wrong. How do you know? Are you with them 24/7? Do you follow them wherever they go and in private? And by whose standard do you think they do the right thing? Allah says in the Quran, and I'll read the verse to you in a minute, one who rejects resurrection day, Qiyamah, the last day, for sure will make mistakes. Why? Because he thinks the end of the line is when he dies, and there's nothing after. So then, what is to stop him from doing the wrong thing? Something came up, an opportunity, and it looks like it is to his benefit, and there's enjoyment in it too. Why would he not do it? What is there to stop him from doing it? Along the same line, some say, I sacrifice and do such and such good deed, so after I die, people say, long live so-and-so, bring my name, as they compliment me, recognize me, give me Oscar. Well, when I'm not here, what is the use or benefit to me if millions of people say hooray to me and say long live so-and-so? What would I really gain from it? So this is a wrong attitude or narrative. He's a good person, but he just does not believe in God. That is a naive way of thinking and a presumptuous one. By the way, not a lot of people think this way. Therefore, Quran brings the witness, as it explicitly says, وَيْلٌ وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ الَّذِينَ يُكَذِّبُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ وَمَا يُكَذِّبُ بِهِ إِلَّا كُلُّ مُعْتَدٍ أَثِيمٍ. Woe that day to those who deny the day of judgment, and none can deny it but the guilty sinner, the transgressor. Chapter 83, verses 10 through 12. Allah says those who deny that day of accountability, Qiyamah, for sure will be kullu mu'tadin athim, guilty sinners or transgressors, because of the reasons we just said earlier. Now, back to the purpose of life, purpose of our creation. Why did He create us? Non-believers or unbelievers say, well, we are here for this world, dunya, and then we die. Look, we have eyes to see the world, ears to hear the world, hands to perform tasks in this world, legs to go around places in the world. So the life or purpose of life is for these few days we live in this material world, and when we die, all these body parts are gone, hence their purpose is gone. On the other hand, believers, especially Muslims, bring this verse as the answer. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. And we talked about this verse already, but often when you recite, where the verse says, I have not created mankind and jinn except to worship me, but often when you recite this verse, some will say, if God does not need our worship and servitude, then why did He create us? Because here it says He created us to worship Him. But if He doesn't need it, then why did He create us? Therefore, the conversation stops right there, as they cannot bring up any reasoning beyond above verse that may provide more explanation, hence more intellectually satisfying answer. So, let's go through the process that gets us to the above verse, the derivation, if you will. The derivation itself will be a proof and answer. When we look at human body, we realize there are physical body parts that are obviously designed for this material world. True? Eyes, ears, hands, arms, legs, feet, etc. All for the purpose of using in this physical world. Animals have the same body parts in common. So what is our advantage over animals? It is our intellect, our aql. Bees, for example, honeybees, for example, make beehive homes based on their instincts, what Allah put in their instincts. They make hexagon cells that are almost perfect with equal angles. But these homes have not evolved. They are exactly the same today as they were 1,000 years ago. Now, compare that with homes humans used to build 1,000 years ago to what they build today, which has immensely evolved. From little shacks or huts or homes on the side of a mountain to palaces and skyscrapers, tall buildings. Other things humans started building, like the ship, submarines, planes, and trains to transport humans from one place to another, and many other things to make life easier. It is all about the power of intellect, and result of gained knowledge, something animals don't have. Therefore, they don't evolve, even though they do have the same or similar body parts we do, and in some cases stronger senses than we do, but not an intelligence that evolves and continuously gains knowledge and innovates. On the other hand, animals enjoy many things in life as humans do. But, and here's a big but they do not have stress, depression, worries about job, or any regrets. When the time comes, they just die, leaving behind a life that they relatively enjoyed. Then the question becomes, why didn't God create man the same way? Could he not create us so we live just like an animal, no worries, no depression, no having to work for a paycheck, no stress, and then die? All the advancement in technology is due to our intellect, and all the worries, stress, depression, regrets, and trouble is also due to our intellect. It can go upward or downward. So, up until now, we have a clear picture of human experience versus animal experience. Here, we should mention materialists, those who just think of physical world and material, say that intellect is there so human spends his time in this life and with it build things. But it seems animals who do not have this intellect live a much better life than us. Then the question becomes, so God gave us all the intellect to live like an animal? It seems like we really don't need it in order to live like an animal. So then, what's missing here? What is missing is that the materialists have not understood the creation and its purpose. The privilege of giving intellect is so we do think of death and the hereafter, aside from all the other benefits we mentioned, building things, etc. So we think of death and hereafter. You see, an animal does not even think of death. It takes death as it comes. In other words, God created human to seek the life after death. He created man so he uses his intellect, aql, to think of death and what comes next, to believe in hereafter and to prepare himself or herself for it, to believe in his promise of paradise for the good doers and hellfire for the transgressors. Even the verse says, I did not create jinn and mankind except to worship me. This means a form of seeking life after death. A person who worships God alone, serves him alone, by doing righteous deeds is all about securing a place in paradise for himself, where there is no more death and everlasting enjoyment and bliss. All the things a believer does in this life are means to reach this goal of hereafter. An animal who does not have intellect is not capable of doing so. An animal does not worry about death and what happens after it dies, or what should it do to prepare for the life after. That is the purpose in life for mankind, to seek hereafter. The whole concept of hereafter, akhirah, was introduced and promoted by the prophets, delivering or reporting on the existence of another world, another life after this called akhirah. And the Quran is the only holy book that emphasizes the most on Qiyamah and hereafter among all other holy books. You go open the Torah or New Testament in Bible, they do not cover even 1% of what the Quran covers about the hereafter, akhirah. And that is why it is the final book, the final testament. Mankind is wired to think about akhirah because his intellect always wonders about the future. That's the nature of his intellect. He always wonders about the future, the end result, the consequences, and some of them about afterlife. When someone is doing something that is harmful or dangerous and you warn him about what could happen to him, he stops. He won't do it anymore. An animal cannot do that. You put a piece of meat in front of it, it will eat it. It will eat the meat and not care where it came from, regardless of which animal's meat it is and whether it is spoiled or poisonous. It will go right ahead and eat it. Attributes like foresight, caution, and being result-oriented belong to human and his intellect. This is why every human must put his hand under his chin, put his thinking hat on, and ask himself, why am I here? And what is going to happen to me next after I die? What is my destination? Islam says you were created for hereafter, for paradise. And this life is just a transit point. This life is a world of passing. And the next life is an everlasting one. As the Quran says, وَيَوْمَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ كَأَنْ لَمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا سَاعَةً مِنَ النَّهَارِ يتعارفون بينهم قد خسر الذين كذبوا بلقاء الله وما كانوا مهتدين. And on the day when he shall gather them together, when it will seem as though they had stayed in this life an hour of the day, they will recognize each other. Indeed, losers will be those who denied the meeting with Allah and refused to receive true guidance. They denied the meeting with Allah and refused to receive true guidance. Chapter 10, verse 45. Meeting Allah, of course, does not mean that they actually see God or meet God or, he comes to their view. It means they will appear in his court, his mahkamah, as their deeds will be presented and judged. The verse says, those who denied the last day and hereafter are the real losers that day. That is when all the curtains are lifted, doubts and suspicions are gone, and the truth will appear before them. قد خسر الذين كذبوا بلقاء الله حتى إذا جاءتهم الساعة بغتة قالوا يا حسرتنا على ما فرطنا فيها وهم يحملون أوزارهم على ظهورهم ألا ساء ما يزرون. They indeed are losers who deny their meeting with Allah until when the hour comes to them. Suddenly, they cry, woe to us that we neglected it, meaning neglected that day. They bear upon their backs their burdens, how evil is that which they bear. Chapter 6, verse 31. All the neglect and shortcomings come into their vision. The one who rejected meeting Allah's court does not come alone. He carries the burden of his wrongdoings and sins, and what a burden that is. May Allah keep us and protect us from being one of them. In conclusion, the purpose of our creation is to utilize our God-given intellect to think, to reflect, just as we use it to innovate. Plus, use God's guidance to reflect on future, the life after death, and about what deeds will produce the best results in the hereafter as well, and as well as how to live a happy, prosperous, and righteous life here in this world. You see, just like when you plant a seed in the ground, you know the potential in that seed, which is its ability to grow into a tree someday and give flower and fruit, hence reach its point of perfection and completion. Allah created us, and He knows the potential in us, the potential to grow, elevate, and reach our point of kamal, completion in our humanity. And He expects us to reach this kamal, plus His obedience and worship, and recognizing what awaits us after death, after this life, and how to prepare for it. We ask Allah to help us address the root cause of our problems rather than treating the symptoms. We ask Allah to give us the knowledge and understanding of His book. We ask Allah to help us keep these three questions and their answers as a reminder in our minds, so we know what our priority is in this life. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum.